Up here around the second chain of islands here in Ayers Bay, uh, Rattlesnake, all this area up in here, along these shorelines, along this reef, Ayers Dugout, this whole area up in here. Again, the reefs have been the main thing that's producing trout for us. Redfish, you can locate your redfish up in the shoreline areas, grass areas, back bays, all those types of areas there. We've primarily been focusing on our trout early in the morning. Our fishing time frames have been, the bite frames have been really short. So we're hitting the water at 6:15, and usually wrapping up, being done by 10, just simply because that's when the heat really starts cranking up on there, and those fish the bite just dies off for us. So unless you've got a major or minor that's working in there for you to kind of help assist with that you can extend that just a little bit longer. But that has been the pattern pretty much for the past week and a half, 2 weeks going on. It's been pretty solid from that standpoint. Now it looks like we've got some little bit of weather that's going to come into us this week at some point, so that'll be a nice little change of pace and kind of break this heat up for us. If that does transpire, it'll go a long way in helping our estuaries later on in the year as we get into the fall and winter time. But we'll see how that transpires and see what goes on with that. But anyway, up here around these reefs here on the second chain, here off of Ayers Point, you've got a few little saucer reefs that are right up in this area here as well. Uh, Again, we're finding decent trout in and around these reefs. You're working these, working the edges, working the deeper edges. If you've got multiple people where you can fish both sides of those things, it does you even that much better because you can locate the fish just a little bit quicker. And then, of course, multiple different baits and see what specifically they're really wanting. Uh, the one thing that we've really kind of hung our hat on this past week, the down south original size in the Copperfield and the watermelon red have been very good for us in that particular size. Burner shad's been okay. We're in transition moon now. We're getting off the backside of the new moon. We're fixing to be in those wild card days that are coming up. So having all different sizes is going to be helpful. Hopefully we get a little push of water with this low pressure that's coming into us here this week. Maybe it'll push a little bit more water into our systems and kind of help rejuvenate some of these lakes, back lakes, and bay systems for us. So that will be nice and helpful for us during that time frame. Continue to work these edges. If you can just kind of find you a little bit of a pattern. Of course, there's been plenty of bait that's working in and around these islands that are out here, whether it be on the shoreline, whether it be the dugout, whether it's been on the second chain, all up in this area of Ayers, we've been locating plenty of bait. So that's not the issue. So again, bite frames are super short. Other than our down south, we've been throwing some mirrodines, some soft dines, knocking tails in the multiple different flavors, rogue, greenback, heavy metal. They've all done pretty well. They've caught fish. Nothing really in particular that's consistent with that. Just the fact that it's the profile size, and of course, in and around these little islands out here, it's a little bit more wide open, so some of that water gets a little beat up for you. So that darker bait, like the watermelon red and the Copperfield, have done good for us. That's why they've probably been pretty spot on for us. Again, burner shad's done okay. Marker 54, the jerk shrimp's been okay. It hasn't knocked it out of the park or anything, but we're catching fish on it. And then, of course, early morning, when that sun's starting to peak up over there, that topwater bait's been okay. We've had opportunities with our topwater baits catching some fish there and some pretty decent fish as well. You get an occasional black drum in and around some of these areas, and you might find a lost redfish or two. But primarily, like I said, we've been targeting the trout in and around these areas, trying to locate and get that bite frame to extend for us just a little bit longer, so we just have plenty of opportunity in and around these areas. Up here in Carlos, upper side, Carlos Bay, the little reef that's right here around in there in Carlos. Then you've got Cedar Dugout that comes all the way around to the mouth of Mesquite. We've got the lower end down here of Carlos. This whole shoreline here has been pretty good. You got hard packed sand in around these areas, and the shale. Again, the shale has been the main thing. You've got here in Carlos, you've got opportunity in around here. You've got all these little shale bars that are out here that are all wadeable, and with our water temp or our water levels where they have been, we've had negative tides now going on for almost 2 months. All these little reefs and these shorelines and these areas like that, they've all opened up for you. It gives you opportunity to find and catch some fish in and around these reefs that way. Again, bait's not been a problem. You got the fingers of Carlos that are right here that have yielded some fish for us, typically in the guts, because a lot of these times, especially early mornings, these the fingers have been sticking out of the water, lots of the shells sticking out of the water. So from a hazard standpoint, if you're up there and you're not super familiar with that, that's a great time to really go run that and kind of mark some stuff that you typically would not see. So when you do run it, when the water levels are up, then you can run safe water. But that's just a thought, just to throw that out there to you. But the fish, we've been locating them again, are all in and around these reefs that are up in here. So you got multiple different opportunities in different areas. Working the deeper edges of the reefs have been most productive for us, and that's pretty been the most consistent part of it. Is we're catching them in and around that side of it, the deeper edge of it. We've pulled a few off on the shallower side, but most of it's come off the deeper edges, waist deep, belly deep water, throwing out to a little bit deeper water, especially as the sun begins to creep up on us. It gets into that 9, 10, 11 o'clock time frame. We're pretty well, trout bite's done by 10, 10:30, maybe even 11. If you get lucky, you can extend it and scratch one out here or there. But as far as your bite frames go, they've been super short. So you really have to get on them, and you have to get on them fast. So make sure that you put a pretty solid game plan in place whenever you're doing this type of fishing right now, especially as hot as it's been. The water temps are, upper 80s, low 90s consistently. It's starting out that way. Super low tides as we continue on with that trend. And again, hopefully this little low pressure that's coming in here sometime this week will help push some water in here. And hopefully that's what will take place. Rain would be great just to help cool things off as well. Great beneficiary there would be us on that particular deal up here on the coast. But again, work these areas really good. Pay attention to what you're doing as far as, say, if you're by yourself, then have your 2 or 3 different profile sizes that you can kind of throw out there and just kind of see what they're wanting. Again, the 4-inch baits have been pretty much spot on for us in the down south in multiple different flavors, and that's the original size. If that water's beat up, throw the darker version of it. Again, the knock and tail have been the same thing. It's 4-inch. That's the great thing about the Marker 54 jerk shrimp. It's, we got a lot of brown shrimp that are migrating through right now, and that's what's being caught. So tie one of those things on there and free line it or put underneath your popping cork and bounce it around off that shell. Be surprised what you come up with on stuff like that. So again, majors and minors, big deal. Really important right now, specifically for those bite frames being as small as what they are. So really incorporate those into your fishing day and just kind of see where those bite frames are happening. Again, your early mornings have been most productive for us. Late evenings, if you want to get back out there at that time of day and try to fish into the dark or fish at dark. I know lots of guys that's been kind of doing that thing, and they've done pretty well with that. Just cooler water temps and cooler air temps. But anyhow, just different options, different ways to go about it, especially with the conditions that we have right now. Down over here in Swan and Copano, all this shoreline here, all the way up and down that, you got the guts and cut throughs that go there into Swan Lake area. Again, with our super low tides that we've had, Swan Lake, the middle of it's been okay. You can work the edges of it. It's been a little warm. There's been a few redfish that's been scattered around in there periodically. You can locate you one. Throwing the knocking tails up there on that shoreline like that and just kind of burning those through there in that shallower water has been pretty productive for us if you can get out in the middle of it. And work all that area, especially with the lower tides. It's come into play pretty well. It gives you another option here off these edges, this deeper water here, off this big flat here on Swan Lake area. Again, I like this particular area up in here because you've got that drop-off edge that's out there, so you've got deeper water. So if you're finding some fish that are up shallow off the grass line edges and those flats and those back lake areas like that, then as that sun begins to creep, those fish are going to move out to deeper water. So what you be able to do is you get a kind of a twofer. So you're fishing up shallow early, throwing the top water, whatever, up in there in those, that knee to thigh deep water, and then you can kind of move out around that 9 or 10 o'clock hour and start fishing out there in that belly deep, or throw it out to even a little bit deeper water that's out there, and you'll find you can locate you some fish that's kind of working there off that. So that's just kind of been of a trend. Whether it's been here in Copano or wherever, the same type of scenario. If you've got that type of structure close to a flat where you can get a little bit deeper water close to that, then you're going to give yourself an extended opportunity to find and catch you some fish. Again, the down south in the original size, watermelon red, copperfield, white ice, just to name a few of those, based on what our water clarity and have been. Those have been really Twisted Tea, Big Papa, all those. We're still throwing those. They're still being productive for us. So don't think we're not doing it. The Burner Shad and the Twisted Tea, Purple Rain have been pretty good. Twisted Tea as well, and Big Papa and that Burner Shad's been all right as well. The Knock and Tail, greenbacks, heavy metal have been most productive. Rogue, not quite as much, but we're still catching fish on it. But the other two flavors have done just a little bit better right now. Another flavor that you can kind of throw in your box would be like an old root beer color. Man, that goes back to old school days. That's been around a long time. So I had a guy that was throwing that this past week and did okay with it. So anyhow, just continue to add those kind of arsenal colors into your box as we head into these transition days, headed toward a full moon. Give yourself a lot of different options: Double D, Soft Dines, Soft Dine XL. They've all been pretty good, especially around that new moon phase. We had some very good days in around the new moon phase. So look for that to kind of continue. If you can kind of continue that trend. Again, lower tides, make sure you're looking for that a little bit deeper water later in the mornings. Locate and find your bait. Incorporate your majors and minors into these days, and you'll catch your fish.